recorder on, and I'll bring the meeting to order. This is the Historic District Commission special meeting. This hearing was published in the Saturday, October 9th edition of the Fairfield Citizen. And if we can take attendance, starting with Chris.
Yeah, hi, Chris Shea, alternate commissioner. I'm sorry, alternate chair commissioner.
James P. Bohan, alternate commissioner.
Christina Negron, commissioner.
And Adam Cliver, commissioner. And Sheila Tessie's here as well. And we have our guest, Mary Dunn, who is here to make a presentation about solar panels in the Historic District, right?
Yep.
That's great. The floor is yours. Great to have you here. Thank you.
Oh, glad. Thanks for asking me. Now let's just see if I can share my screen. Hold on a minute, please. Put the phone down. Oh, okay. Hold on a minute. It's connecting, so let's hope it works. Oh my goodness.
What are you trying to share your screen?
And it's the little wheel is spinning and it's saying connecting. So hopefully it will connect in a minute.
How are you doing it?
I'm just hitting share. And then
share content.
Share content is what it says. I thought I hit share screen though.
I think it would.
Let me just,
yes.
Let me try. Hold on 1 minute. Let me just try one more time. Okay, so share screen, and then I get stuck. I could email the presentation to somebody, and somebody else could share it if that wouldn't take too long. But I don't know what.
Yeah, sure. Just send it to me.
Okay, hold on a second.
Or try. Is it a file?
It's a PowerPoint.
Maybe just try to share a file and then go and find the file you want to share.
Okay.
That might work.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Ooh, okay, share. Oh, I'm not stuck on connecting. Hold on a minute. All right. All right, hold on. Well, it says share application. I got to tell you, the presentation's not going to be as long as this. Sorry. Hold on.
Or you can email it to me, and I'll try.
Yeah, let me. Yeah, if you'll just hold on a second, I will try to email it to you. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on a minute.
Hey, Adam, do we have a new alternate commissioner yet?
I do not know the status. I think I'm hopeful that she gets, approved at the next RTM meeting. I don't know what the date is, though.
Okay.
And we're losing Margaret next month.
Oh,
Her term ends next month, so I think she has one more meeting, and then we lose
wow.
Margaret.
Wow.
And she's been sort of inconsistent, though. So I mean, but
Yeah.
Okay. I just, it should be on its way. I sent it to, I think, everybody, Chris and Rosina and the town. Has anybody gotten it yet? Has it come through?
I'm looking right now.
Oh, no.
Something's receiving.
Oh,
Okay, great. It's
see.
yes, it
Is it a big?
should
Is
be
it a big
fairly
file?
small.
yeah, I
No,
got,
it's not. It's like 10 slides.
I actually have it, I think. Yeah,
Okay.
I have it. Of course, now I'm not. Ugh. Let's see. To save it as a file. Download it.
Okay, I got it. I'm opening it.
Oh, good. Thanks.
Yeah, let's hope it's the one.
Yep.
Okay. Yay. All right, that looks like it. Okay.
Good job.
So.
All right. I will start. Okay. Actually, I guess I can keep my video off. It might help. So, slide one. Okay. So this is brief, as I kind of said before, because there's just a few points I want to touch on, and then we can maybe discuss in general. I can't really talk about any specific applications that you've seen, like specific ones, but I can certainly talk about scenarios or just questions that you might have. Okay. So, as you asked, I'm here to talk about using solar technology in historic districts and what you should be considering when you're reviewing certificates of appropriateness applications. So, next slide. Okay. So, as you all know, you get all of your authority from state statute and your local ordinance, of course, 7-147. And the Section F was written into statute in the 70s, as a result of, energy efficiency, measures that people were taking across the country. And I'm not sure what the intent was or why they felt they had to put it in, but I suspect it might have been because historic district commissions either didn't know how to address the issue, or they might have just been out of hand rejecting it, because this language is pretty specific that you cannot deny one, except for, as with anything else, unless you find that the feature can't be installed without substantially impairing the historic character and appearance of the district. So a lot of people actually up until about 10 years ago interpreted this to mean that you had to approve all solar panel installations. But that's not really what the statute is saying. It's just saying that you need to consider the applications. You can't just reject them out of hand. But like anything else, any other change in material or structure or alteration of a feature that's visible from a public way, that falls under your authority to review. So we'll start with some considerations. So next slide. So always review the work in the context of your design review guidelines. And do you have published design review guidelines, right? Or do you?
We have a what's it called, a handbook.
Okay, great. And if you don't,
it has. Yeah.
okay. If you don't have anything in there right now that addresses solar. And I got to tell you, there's not a whole lot out there that addresses. Well, actually, I mean, there's a couple of resources I'll tell you about at the end of the presentation. But if you don't have a section in there on solar technology, we can offer you a CLG grant to either to develop one that specifically talks about solar technology or just adds to your current handbook. So, if you feel like you need that. But still, just your general considerations can be applied here, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But one of the first questions you should ask, and one of the first things the National Park Service recommends, is that you need to make sure that the applicant has, well, not make sure, but ask if they've undertaken other appropriate treatments to improve energy efficiency. It's sort of like, the person that wants to come and replace all their windows, but there's a hole in the roof, or, they haven't really, insulated the basement or the attic. You want to make sure that this solar technology isn't going to be a Band-Aid or even a waste of the applicant's money, really, if it doesn't have maximum efficiency or energy efficiency. So it's just a question to ask, just for their edification as well. And then there's a variety of options for placing solar technology. I'm sure most people will come to you, with the front-facing pitch, facing the street side on the roof, But sort of in order of preferability, a ground-mounted array would be best. That's away from the building. It could be behind the building, but it's not like mounted to the roof of the building. Or it can be on an auxiliary building, like a shed, or a new rear addition that's on the house, or a post-historic outbuilding, that's not the house itself. And I do understand that for maximum efficiency, there has to be sufficient sunlight, being collected by the panel. So sometimes that's not an option, especially in a local district where, again, a ground-mounted array would be considered a structure, and so you would have to review that in and of itself. The third option is roof-mounted panels, or and then the last, sort of not as preferable, are solar roof shingles, the sort of integrated solar shingles. And I'll talk about just briefly about the first two, and then a little bit more about the last two in the next slide. So the next slide. So ground-mounted arrays, or putting it on an auxiliary building, you can usually find, a less visually obtrusive area. That's the benefit of that, and still get the benefit of collecting the solar energy. You can use vegetation or a compatible screen to kind of further reduce the visual impact, especially of a ground-mounted array. And if that's not, topographically possible, due to excessive shade or there's not enough room on the lot, then if there's an outbuilding, as I said, or new construction, a shed or a rear addition, that could accommodate the panels and still, benefit the applicant, then that's something to consider. Okay, so next slide. So, as I said, obviously it's the roof that is the preferred place. Not from our point of view, but usually the contractor and the applicant. It's just easy to put the panels right there on the front-facing pitch, because that's usually where all the sun comes in. But a roof, can be a very character-defining feature of the historic property. It could be a flat roof, it could be a gambrel roof, it could be a side pitch cross gable, and you really want to make sure that you minimize the impact of the panels on the roof. So we generally just don't like to consider panels that are mounted on the front-facing pitch of a roof. If you look at these two pictures, this is actually the Eli Whitney boarding house in Hamden, owned by Preservation Connecticut. This is something that is appropriate. It's on a side gable. You can see in the upper hand corner, left-hand corner, you can see the panels, but if you look head-on at the building, you can't see the panels. That is because the panels have a very low profile. They are installed fairly close to the roofing materials. So that minimizes the profile so that it doesn't raise up and you can't see it as well, like from the street level. Another consideration is that you don't want the panels to project above the roof ridge, sort of obscuring the ridge line of the roof. So this is a side-facing gable installation. If you have a low flat roof, that's that can be good. It can be almost invisible if it's a flat roof, literally flat roof, and maybe with a parapet around it. A cross gable can work if the gables are sort of set back from the main, like the pedimented pitch. That can work and be less obtrusive. You just want to avoid altering the architectural character of the building. And this might happen if the building has a flat roof and the arrays maybe can't lay flat. And so the contractor or the applicant might want to raise the pitch. And if that flat roof is a character-defining feature, if it's like a modern house, or you don't want to raise the pitch, at least not noticeably. So that's something to think about. Just make sure that that's clear when the applicant is presenting. And then, of course, you want to avoid damaging historic roof materials. So, if the applicant has an asphalt shingle roof, it's fairly easy to put solar panels on that without damaging the roof material. But I don't know how you would put solar panels on like a half clay tile roof, or even a slate roof. That could be very damaging. So those are also things to consider. And you also, kind of want to make sure that the roof itself, the system itself, is strong enough. I mean, I don't think solar panels are, inordinately heavy, but you want to make sure that the roof itself is in good condition so it can sustain that extra weight. You don't want to, cave in. And one thing about roof-mounted panels is that they're generally reversible. So if you do approve a certificate of appropriateness application for roof-mounted solar panels, you can put a stipulation in that they be removed either at the end of the lease or the end of their useful life. Now, the house might change hands, before that happens, but a COA will. I don't know how your local ordinance works, but a COA generally moves with the house. So the new owner should be made aware that the panels need to come down once they reach, their end of their useful life, or, if they're leased once the lease is up. So that's a little bit of a way to mitigate the impact on a permanent level. So that's roof mounted. So next slide. So the last is the integrated shingles. And the reason this is probably our least preferable option, the material isn't reversible. And reversibility is a big thing, in preservation. If you're going to introduce something new, it's good to know that it can be undone, that you don't do permanent damage to the architectural or historical significance of the building. The technology, especially in this regard, is changing rapidly in both ways. In some ways, companies are discontinuing the shingles because they're not as efficient as panels. And I think in other areas, better and less obtrusive shingles are being developed. So you just have to keep an eye on what's going on and what product the applicant is actually using. So to that end, they need to provide specifications on what they want to use. And also, if possible, and I guess the contractor would be able to provide this, photographs of shingles that are already installed on a building, preferably here in Connecticut, so that you can see what they look like. You want the product to, have a uniform, compatible appearance. You don't want you don't want to see a contrast between the photovoltaic shingles and if it's asphalt shingles, that roofing material. So if it's not an entire roof of shingles, but instead, panels of shingles, it can create a pretty distinct contrast. And texture and color and visibility are important when you're looking at an historic feature or an architectural feature. So that's important. And you want to make sure you want to know if the product is highly reflective, which a lot of them are, and that can give sort of a shiny or glossy appearance to the roof, which would not be what it would look like historically, even if it doesn't have the original roofing material on it. Asphalt shingle's been around for a long time. It's an appropriate replacement material, but it's not shiny or glossy. It doesn't starkly change the look of the house. And then try to find out exactly how these shingles are installed, and whether or not it will damage any important structural elements of the roof. I mean, I'm assuming not. I hope not. But these are just questions that you might want to ask the applicant, and hopefully they can bring the contractor with them so that the contractor can answer these questions to your satisfaction. So those are our thoughts on integrated shingles. So as I said, this is a pretty short presentation. But next slide. There are resources. Our website has an energy efficiency guide for historic houses, and I can send these links to you if you can't pull them right out of the PowerPoint presentation. The National Park Service does have illustrated guidelines on sustainability, a very small section on solar technology, but very useful. And then they also have a longer technical preservation brief that talks about the different types of solar installations and the pros and cons, and these are great because the illustrations. I didn't really have many illustrations in this presentation, but these will give you an idea of what might be recommended or not recommended or appropriate or otherwise. So with that, my contact information you all actually have, but there it is again. And then I thought, so that's, this is sort of like a springboard. Do you guys have, questions or,
Yeah.
just discuss?
Yeah.
So. Okay.
Thank you. I think it's the reason why this is come to be. The reason why we asked you to come down or to present to us is because we have an application for Tesla solar shingles. Installation for Tesla solar shingles. We did get some samples of the shingles, and it's a lot different than what I thought the installation was going to be like. It's being sold as like solar shingles that look like shingles, and in fact it's like these large solar panels, and then they mix in fake shingles that look like slate. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. They're not forthcoming. It's misleading what they're trying to, So anyway, we're hoping that we can, this would help us to figure out how to deal with that situation and make the right decision.
So you would address this almost like any other change to an architectural feature. It sounds like the appearance, the texture is not going to be compatible with what the current roof is. What does the current roof consist of? What's the material?
It's asphalt, and it's an asphalt roof that needs to be replaced. It's in disrepair.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did it originally have slate on it, or was it always asphalt shingle?
I think it probably had, if anything, wood.
Okay.
I don't believe it ever had slate.
Okay. So again, I don't want to, comment on specific applications, but generally speaking, when somebody is
Yeah.
changing their roofing material, it should be the same, or whatever the historic material is. But you certainly, if it never had slate on it, you should not put slate on it, or something that, or even fake slate, or, you know, in this case, simulated slate solar. You know, is it possible to
Yeah.
see this material on another building that's already installed, so that you can kind of get a
Yeah,
feel
yeah. There's
for?
one in Westport that we can see. I know Jim and Rosina, I think, can kind of see it.
Okay.
I think what the samples that you have is version 3. If I'm not mistaken, the one that it's installed, it's either version 1 or 2, because it looks very different. So I might be mistaken. That was going to be one of my questions, because they look fairly different.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is a little misleading.
Yeah. Well, and you need, and as with anything else, you know, windows, you know, a new door, you know, you need to be comfortable that you really know what it's going to look like once it's installed. And you could almost take, especially when you're talking about integrated shingles, you could almost take the fact that they're solar out of it and just look at it as a new material, and whether or not you think it's appropriate for the roof.
Yep.
Okay.
This is the fake shingle. This is not the solar panel.
Okay.
Just to give you an idea what it looks like.
Yeah.
I'll show you the solar panel. And then it gets mixed in with these. I mean.
Yeah. So again, I want to be careful, not just, but yeah, that's not.
No,
okay.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
I mean, you don't know the application, so it's, but you know, just in terms of material in general.
Well, right. That would not be, you know, take the solar out of it. That would not be an appropriate replacement material. At least, you know, if I were reviewing it, you know, in our office for a grant or a tax credit, it would not be appropriate. I mean, you know, we have people coming in that have asphalt shingle roofs, and then they all of a sudden want to change to a standing seam metal roof. Well, you know, never had standing seam. It's not an appropriate replacement. So, you know, even if these weren't solar shingles, are they an appropriate replacement for the roof? You know, but as with anything, you really have the right to know exactly what you're reviewing and what you're making a decision on. It's, you know, and I think if you don't get that information in time to meet your 65-day review, you can, you know, deny an application without prejudice, and then ask the applicant to come back when they have, you know, the appropriate material, or the appropriate information that you need to make your decision. So yeah.
So you mentioned providing help for a section of our handbook about solar panels.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think we'd be very interested in.
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously we can give you a non-matching grant for that, and it obviously would probably not cost that much. If you needed to update your whole handbook, you could do the whole thing and then just, you know, specify that you need a section on solar technology. You know, if you don't really need to update your entire handbook, then I think just hiring, you know, a preservation consultant to produce a chapter or an appendix to add to your current handbook should probably not cost that much. But we would want you to hire a preservation consultant, like an architectural historian with historic preservation, and we can, you know, there are many qualified people out there. So
I
that
have
is
a question for you. If one of our commissioners is like a PhD and has that qualification, is there a conflict of interest? She can do it as a commissioner, right?
Yeah, I let me think about that. let me think about that. Well, probably it would be a conflict because it's, the town, you're a town body, you're applying for funding.
Right.
But let me just, I'll check with the Park Service for starters and maybe our procurement people.
Okay.
And just
She's not a
make
commissioner
sure.
yet.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I mean,
Well,
if you have a few names of folks that we could reach out to, that would probably that already do this. I mean,
Yeah, of course.
we would
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
okay.
And
Yeah,
what
I will do
about
that.
in the same lines, we were thinking about the whole painting, revising the handbook related to painting. Does that also,
Oh,
can it be applied to the same thing?
If I mean, yeah, I mean,
And brick.
you can. Okay, yeah, I mean, if you've got like holes in your handbook that or issues that aren't specifically addressed that the residents of your district want information about, or that you've been seeing these applications, then definitely. I mean, you could just apply for a district, a handbook update. You don't have to throw the whole thing out, but if there are certain things that you need added, yeah, anything that helps you in your capacity to review these applications. So yeah, we could do
That
that.
would be great.
so we hire a consultant to write the revisions, and then we just include them in our handbook. Sort of the way it works?
Exactly. Yep.
And we
yeah.
apply for reimbursement from your office, from a grant?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, since you're a certified local government, you can apply for the non-matching federal grant. Once you are awarded the grant, we can advance you some funding to start off with the consultant, and then once the consultant delivers a product that's satisfactory to everybody and meets the Secretary of the Interior standards, then we close out the grant, and so it's reimbursable, but we can give you an advance. So
Okay.
but
great.
it's non-matching, so I'm pretty sure. I mean,
Right.
especially if it's an update, they're not starting from scratch. Although they should provide good illustrations and good research. I imagine it won't cost more than what our grant cap is, which is $20,000. So I think you should be able to.
Oh, geez, I hope not.
Yeah, I know. So
There's
yeah,
an update.
I'm just saying. Yeah, right.
Okay.
Well, and then you can use some
That's
of that
fantastic.
grant to print the new, the updates or the new handbook. So
Mm-hmm.
however you
Okay,
want to do
great.
it.
Great.
Yeah. So,
Mary, I had a couple of questions on your presentation,
Mhm.
if that's okay.
Sure.
It's Chris. My picture's not up on the screen for some reason, but that's just so you know who's speaking. So the first photographs that you showed, it had that. I think you said maybe it was Eli Whitney house.
Mhm. Yeah.
And because the gable was facing the street, the solar panels, even though it was very visible from a public way, it seems, they weren't
Mhm.
facing the street. But was that in a historic district?
Actually, no, it wasn't. It's not. It's in Hamden, and it's where the Connecticut Trust for Historic Preservation has their headquarters, and they basically wanted to do this technology, but in a way that met the Secretary of the Interior standards. I will say that you actually cannot see that house from the highway that goes by. It's set off way off from the road, and there's a tree cover and all of that. So.
Okay.
That's optimum, but again, if it's visible from a public way, you just want it to be minimally intrusive, right? And so it's much less intrusive to have it on a side gable or a setback cross gable than just right on the front of the most houses have the ridge line parallel to the street, so there's no option but that front facing pitch. But
Right.
and that's where
Okay.
you want to really press to see if there's another location, besides that pitch. If there's an auxiliary building in back that has enough exposure, or even ground mounted panels even in the front or the side of the house that you can screen. Even that would be probably preferable to that placement. So.
Okay. And another question that I had was, you talked a lot about PV, but you didn't really mention thermal. And, the thermal panels seem to be a lot clunkier, and they project more off the roof typically. And also you see the piping. How do we deal with that?
Yeah. Because thermal are pretty specific use. Isn't that gathering to heat like water, right? It's not.
It's heating up hot water instead of taking sun to electricity.
Right. So, that's really tricky. And that is, you're basically putting a structure on top of a roof. They're pretty, they can be pretty big. And as you said, so, hide it behind a chimney. I don't know. It's just, again, kind of look at what your options are. That's a toughie. And I can actually dig up some information on it, but I've read information on it, and it's not promising, because it's just you're putting this structure on top of a roof, and that's really hard. It's not. It's probably more obtrusive than an antenna. You could almost liken it to like a satellite dish. Even a little one. So then again, you need to try to minimize the impact as much as you can, or you don't have to approve an application. But obviously, commissions like to be as resourceful and amenable as possible. It's just that you want to make sure you have all the information you need, and that you're satisfied. Not unfortunately, but unfortunately, sometimes a certificate of appropriateness, an application has to be rejected. Based on your design review guidelines. But hopefully, maybe you can work with the applicant to come to a better conclusion than that.
And then you had mentioned a couple of times that we should consider the structural integrity of the roof system and whether or not it can support this application. And I guess, we don't have the technical wherewithal to do that. I think we could maybe ask them, have they had, an engineer look at the roof to confirm that the system is capable of being supported by the structure, something like that.
I would assume, I would hope that the contractor or the manufacturer would have that, would know. I really would hope that they wouldn't come in and install something that would destroy their customer's roof. But it's, it's a question. It's just, as a resource, as a commission that wants to work with the residents of their property owners in the district, it's good to just make sure they're aware of these things. But you're right. I'm not a structural engineer. You're not structural engineers. Maybe one of you is, but but it's something to consider, because we've actually in our office, we were looking at this application, and the person was talking about how the roof is about to cave in, and I want to put solar panels on top, and I'm like, well, and they didn't talk about like replacing the roof first or structurally, so I don't, so we kind of, nudged them and asked them if, so that it hopefully had a better outcome. But yeah, it's just things that you as a resource for the property owners, just things that they should consider. But honestly, I would hope that manufacturers and contractors would have this already, would already know.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mary.
Sure.
Does anyone else have any questions? Jim? Rosina? Oh, wait.
I don't have any questions. It's been quite informative, so, but I think
Oh,
Jim
good.
might be muted and trying to talk,
Oh.
so.
Oh.
Yeah. Trying to
Okay,
mute him. Yeah, there you go.
can you hear me now? Good. Uh,
You have a question, Jim?
this particular application is Tesla. It really ends with Tesla rules being subject of applications for historic districts.
I have not. I would say though, I mean, I did get an inquiry from someone in New Canaan. It wasn't, I don't believe it was coming before an historic district commission, but you should probably research the product yourself as well and make sure that, just research the product yourself. And yeah, make sure you can be informed.
Jim has seen the product. Right, Jim?
Yeah, and I have mixed feelings about it.
Yeah. I would also, and this is a general comment that and one that I've actually read, so I don't feel like I'm being specific, but you want to make sure that this is the technology that's, if this is something that an applicant wants, they need to make sure this is the best technology that they can get, because I am reading that certain integrated solar shingles are not as efficient as other technology. And so, again, it would, since it's not reversible, and if it does have a negative or an adverse impact on the structure or the district, and then it's not even the best or most efficient technology, that's a lose. So, that's something to make sure you understand, or that the applicant understands as well. Sure.
Okay. Well, Mary, thank you so much.
I just want to be careful not to malign it.
Presenting. And
sure.
And it'd be great if you could email me some potential people to help us out with the handbook and any information on the grant that I may need to know.
Yep. I sure will. Okay.
That'd be great.
I'll get that out to you. Wonderful. Okay. So good luck.
Great.
Hope you do.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Works out.
We're going to need it.
Okay. You're welcome.
We have a motion to adjourn?
Okay. All right. I will talk to you later. Bye. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll do the motion.
I'll second
I'll
it.
second.
Rosina, motion to adjourn. Chris seconds. All in favor? Hands?
Aye.
Aye, okay. We're adjourned. Thanks, guys. Hopefully this was
Thank
informative
you.
for you. And